The NFL's Day of Days turned out gray and humid in Houston, Texas, but all the glitter of Super Sunday, January 13, 1974, still rang true in Rice Stadium as triumphant brass bands heralded the meeting of football's two finest teams. From the National Football Conference, led by head coach Bud Grant, the Minnesota Vikings had come to challenge the defending world champion Miami Dolphins of the American Football Conference in Super Bowl VIII. The Vikings traditionally have lived on the swarming defensive tactics, but this year, guided by the veteran quarterback Fran Tarkenton, the mighty Purple People achieved the overall consistency and balance necessary to catapult them to super status. And ironically, if there was a weakness on the Minnesota team, according to pregame analysis, it was on defense, where the once indomitable Purple Gang had proven to be vulnerable to a straight-ahead running attack during the 1973 NFL campaign. And though the Vikings' front four Norsemen, as they were called, was a star-studded unit, it was across this line, in the battle with Miami's magnificent outcasts, that most experts believe this game would be won or lost. Magnificent outcasts like 6'6" left tackle Wayne Moore, once cut by the San Francisco 49ers. And right guard Bob Kuechenberg, who would play this game with a broken arm, had been axed by Philadelphia and Atlanta before catching on with a minor league team of the Chicago Bears. The all-pro center Jim Langer had been signed as a free agent and put on waivers by Cleveland. And pro football's premier pulling guard Larry Little was also a free agent who was dismissed by the San Diego Chargers. Tackle Norm Evans, the only remaining original Dolphin, was acquired in the AFL expansion draft from Houston in 1966. And the character of these magnificent outcasts was clearly the character of the Dolphins' full 40-man roster, or even as they approached the doorstep of a professional football dynasty, exceeding even the glory years of the pack, people doubted the credibility of these champions who wore the colors of Howard Johnson's. Still, in honor of their unprecedented third consecutive Super Bowl appearance, the Miami Dolphins were rated slim favorites to retain their title on this afternoon of champions. But all the experts agreed that the story of this game would be told in the trenches, where Minnesota's defensive front four Norsemen would battle Miami's magnificent outcasts. In this, the NFL Game of the Week, Super Bowl VIII. I'm Al Meltzer. Miami began play as everyone expected they would, sending their great stud horse Larry Zonka charging straight ahead. A repeat of the play shows that an overpowering block by number 79 Wayne Moore cleared the way for Zonka's 16-yard bolt. Then, to keep the linebackers honest, Bob Greasy turned to Marlon Briscoe on this quick out. Good for 6 more yards. Then, as he would all afternoon, Greasy capitalized on Minnesota's overreaching pursuit, giving to Zonka on a counter play which brought the ball to rest on the Vikings' 8-yard line. 2 plays later, the Vikings were again finessed by misdirection, and Zonka rammed home on a quick hitter, giving Miami a 7-0 advantage after their first offensive series. The 10-play, 62-yard drive was a stunning display of offensive mastery spearheaded by Larry Zonka. And just as they had begun the season with such a drive against the college All-Stars nearly 6 months ago, they had begun against the Minnesota Vikings in Super Bowl VIII. Then it was Fran Tarkenton's turn to answer the Dolphins. But Miami's defense was no less masterful than the offense, and Minnesota was forced to give up the ball without a first down. Still, Mike Eischeid's punt almost netted Minnesota a needed break when Ron Porter separated Jake Scott from the football. But Scott, in the way the champions will, recovered from his mistake when it appeared that he was out of the play and the Miami attack was back in business. And once again, Bob Greasy sent Larry Zonka tearing relentlessly into the belly of the Viking defense. But then an enraged Alan Page hit the right gap at the right time and stopped the Dolphins' Jim Kick with a 3-yard loss. But coolly confident of his running game, Greasy backpedaled, showing pass, and handed to Zonka, who rammed ahead for 12 yards on the 2nd and 13 situation. On 3rd and 1, great blocks by center Jim Langer and right guard Larry Little freed Zonka on another jarring run, and Miami had a first down at the Minnesota 14-yard line. Mixing his plays perfectly and taking advantage of a Viking blitz, Greasy then found Marlon Briscoe under the Minnesota zone, and Miami had a tough 13-yard gain the easy way. 2 plays later, Jim Kick squirmed into the end zone, and the Dolphins had a 14-0 lead without allowing the Minnesota Vikings a first down thus far in the first quarter. On the last play of the first period, Fran Tarkenton earned Minnesota's first down with this 9-yard pass to Doug Kingsrider. But on 3rd and 1 at the top of the second quarter, a submarining Manny Fernandez drove Viking guard Frank Gallagher into the Minnesota backfield, and the Vikings once again were forced to relinquish the football. But with 2nd and 8 at the Dolphins' 45, the Viking defense turned mean, and Bob Greasy was sacked for a 10-yard loss by Alan Page. Facing 3rd and 18 and leading 14-0, Greasy surprisingly elected to put the ball up again. And only a fine save by the Viking free safety number 22 Paul Krause prevented a spectacular and perhaps a game-breaking reception by Marlon Briscoe. A second look at the play shows that Greasy's accurate throw was even more remarkable, where upon releasing the football, he was powdered by a hard-charging Carl Eller. The incompletion, Greasy's first of the half, forced Miami to punt the ball away. But the Miami defense proved equally difficult for Fran Tarkenton, and very shortly, Miami's magnificent outcasts were once again opening breakaway holes for Dolphin runners. The bruising Larry Zonka again cracked deep into Viking territory, and the Dolphins appeared on the threshold of completely dominating the purple game. But needing only 1 yard for a first down, young middle linebacker Jeff Seaman met Zonka head-on, and Miami was forced to try a 28-yard field goal by the little Cypriot sidewinder Garo Yepremian. Yepremian's boot was true, and with less than 6 minutes remaining in the half, Miami's lead was 17-0. Then Fran Tarkenton urged the sleeping Vikings offense to life, first hitting tight end Stu Voigt for a 17-yard gain, and then connecting with Voigt again for a 14-yard gain that almost resulted in a fumble, but the ball was ruled dead at the Miami 46. Then on 3rd down, needing 9 yards, Tarkenton hit John Gilliam underneath the Miami zone for a 30-yard gain to the 15. But there, the drive ground down to a 4th down and short at the Dolphins' 6-yard line. And then, as he had done in every critical short yardage situation in the half, Tarkenton called on his all-pro right tackle Ron Yeri to clear the way. And in this situation, as in each of the others, the Dolphin defense denied the necessary yardage as Miami's middle linebacker Nick Bonaconti closed the hole, and the Dolphins took over to end the half with a dominant 17-0 advantage. The Dolphins emerged from their dressing room for the second half fully confident of their ability to keep control of the game. Miami is the most difficult team in the league to come back against. Given any kind of lead, and with a 17-point bulge that they had fashioned, they were almost out of sight. With the stingy Dolphins defense and the runs of Larry Zonka to control the ball for long stretches on offense, Don Shula knew that the only way his Dolphins could be caught was by some long ball magic. And on the second half kickoff, that magic very nearly caught up with him when John Gilliam carried the ball back 65 yards. But on the play occurred the first of three excruciatingly damaging penalties for Minnesota, as a clip nullified the return, bringing the Vikings a first down on their own 11 instead of the Dolphins' 34. Trailing by 17, the Vikings figured to pass often in the second half, and so the Dolphins went to their 53 defense, named for linebacker Bob Matheson, number 53, which they use when the opposition is in a passing situation, and it very nearly led to a game-breaking turnover when Tarkenton went to the air. Repeating the play reveals the reason for number 57, Mike Colin's disappointment. For when forced to dump off a short one, Tarkenton very nearly threw a touchdown pass to him. In the 53 defense, Matheson replaces a lineman, and so a lot of pressure is put on the three who remain. Matheson either takes part in the pass coverage or acts as a lineman. If Matheson anticipates a pass and drops off, the other lineman must be mobile enough to stop the run, and indeed the Dolphins are. But they must also be quick enough to mount a pass rush. For if given enough time, no coverage will hold up long enough to contain a quarterback of Tarkenton's caliber. Here again, the Dolphins have what it takes. The Vikings went nowhere on their first possession of the second half, and a repeat of this third down sack shows the reason the Dolphins so successfully used their 53 defense. Watch number 75, Manny Fernandez, as he first shucked center Mick Tingelhoff, number 53, and then is by guard Ed White, number 62, before he can intercept Fernandez's rendezvous with Tarkenton. The Dolphin defense forced a Viking punt from their own end zone. And with the resulting good field position, Greasy went for it all, laying the ball out perfectly for Warfield, who made a super stab. Warfield, injured earlier in the week and a questionable starter at game time, had reported to Greasy early in the game that he could go full strength. Greasy had waited for the right time, and Warfield had graphically proved his readiness and his greatness. But with a critical third down, the Vikings defense finally swamped the Dolphin offense with an 8-yard loss. The play should have forced a field goal, but again, the Vikings committed a grievous penalty. A holding penalty giving Miami a first down on the 6. 2 plays later, Zonka barged in for his second touchdown of the game. Greasy revealed after the game that he had forgotten the snap count, and when he turned to ask Zonka the count, he too had blanked. The usually conservative Greasy decided to go ahead with the play anyway, and indicative of the great team that the Dolphins are, they made the play work for a touchdown despite the confusion. Zonka, who required stitches near his oft-broken nose in the first half in order to continue the game, was momentarily stunned, but he rested in the end zone with his second score of the day, and typically, the first man to congratulate him was a lineman, guard Bob Kuchenberg. After the game, Kuchenberg said, "If I have an idol on this team, it's Larry Zonka. He's just a blood and guts player. To me, he's the ultimate football player." Zonka's touchdown and Yepremian's extra point made the score Vikings 0, Dolphins 24. In the fourth quarter, Tarkenton finally began to solve the Dolphins' puzzling zone. Mixing short, over-the-middle passes to tight end Stu Voigt and short outs to his wide receivers, Tarkenton led the Vikings deep into Dolphin world. Finally, with 12 minutes left in the game, Tarkenton kept the ball himself and crossed the Dolphin goal line. Because they were using short passes exclusively, Minnesota had gone to a double tight end offense. And on a repeat of the touchdown, we can see that it paid off as number 89 tight end Doug Kingsrider cleared Tim Foley out of Tarkenton's path. Trailing now 24-7, Minnesota's only hope was an onside kick, and Fred Cox hit it perfectly. Terry Brown, number 24, recovered the kick, and the Vikings had possession on the Dolphin 49. But once again, a big Viking play was nullified by a penalty, as they had been offsides, and their last chance appeared doomed. But for the first time in the game, the Vikings defense held the Dolphins to 3 downs and lost only 2 minutes of the clock. But more importantly, what the Vikings had lost was field position. And as a crowning touch to a total team, Dolphin punter Larry Seipel dealt the death blow with a perfect kick. Still, Tarkenton and the Vikings refused to submit, and working to Ed Marinero, Frantic Fran went back to his short pass attack. Marinero is the Vikings' best pass receiver coming out of the backfield, and he was in the game for that reason. But on the second catch of the drive, he proved he could run too. This pass to Marinero was Tarkenton's 18th completion in the game. It set a new Super Bowl record, but one he would gladly have traded for a win. A win that was locked up by the Dolphins when Curtis Johnson intercepted what was to be the Vikings' last offensive play of the game. The Dolphin defense had done their part, and with 6.5 minutes left, they gave the ball over to the offense to accomplish their mission. In a fitting close to their performance, the Dolphin offensive line was able to create the cracks that enabled Miami to keep the ball for the remainder of the game. Time after time, Greasy called Zonka's number, and though they knew he was coming, the Vikings could not stop pro football's premier power runner. On the sidelines, the Dolphin defense celebrated and then watched the action, grateful that it wasn't they who had to try and stop Larry Zonka and his inexorable advance into Super Bowl history. Finally, with less than a minute to go, Zonka left the game to a standing ovation for Super Bowl VIII's outstanding player. 33 carries for 145 yards, both Super Bowl records. Trailing Zonka came the members of the Dolphin offensive line, who had made Miami's domination of the NFL championship game possible. Each got his reward in a grateful handshake from head coach Don Shula. With their 24-7 conquest of the Vikings, Shula's Dolphins had matched the feat of Vince Lombardi's Green Bay Packers, back-to-back Super Bowl championships. They have now matched or eclipsed all of the great Lombardi records. A comparison is inevitable, for if Lombardi's great Packard teams were the team of the 60s, Shula's Dolphins are certainly the team of the 70s. And with just one challenge left to conquer, 3 straight Super Bowls, they may be the greatest team of all time.